Hey Jabbers, welcome back to another mini-sode. Today we're talking about something near and dear to our heart, which is how to create a solid team of vendors for your wedding day. I wanted us to talk about this because I think a team, depending on how you guys are jiving on the day, it can really make or break the day. We've had experiences where the team works so well together, everyone's helping each other out. It makes for a flawless experience. And we've also had experiences where it's almost like everyone's just on their own island and they're only focusing on their job. And it just makes it so unpleasant, perhaps. And I think we can't forget that this is our job and these are our coworkers. So, how do we find a way to really create a solid vendor team? How do planners play a role in that? What happens if just your clients have hired all of the vendors and you're just dealing with who you're dealing with? So, let's talk about it, Carrie.
Yeah, I think what makes a vendor team solid? And I think a lot of that for us as planners starts with the lead up in the communication with those vendors prior to the wedding day. I think for me, like I'm overly communicative with our vendors and I want to make sure everyone has the timeline, the details, they know where to park, like all of those things. Does everybody read it?
Oh my
Not
God.
necessarily,
Oh
which
my
is
God.
another topic. Um, but also, right, that's like being a part of the team. Like read your email of wedding information prior to like 24 hours before the wedding day. Usually I am the person that's like following up to be like, please confirm you have received this and that you have no questions. Or if you do, like, let me know because we're getting close. Like, I don't want, I've had this happen before. A lot of people have emailed me or texted me the day before and they have questions about the timeline,
Yes.
or they're like, oh, I actually need X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, where were you when I asked these questions 2 months ago? Um, so I think it's like being on top of your own shit
Yeah.
and like communicating with the planner about like, do you need a table? Do you need an umbrella for your equipment for like a DJ? Like whatever that is. I think
Poor
the
DJs.
more I
They're
know.
always the one getting shit on by us. But it's not always the case. It's just that
It's not.
there is a little bit of that they do come to mind freshly. Because
Yes.
I was also going to mention a DJ situation after.
Yes. Yeah, not to shit on the DJs because we have some wonderful ones that we work with, but a lot of my experiences have been either photographers or DJs that just don't communicate well. Um, and like, look, I'm not changing the timeline the day before the wedding. So if you have an issue, like too little, too late, like get on board and make it work. Like the time to make changes was a month ago when I
Yeah.
asked you how the timeline looked.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And okay, I just need to share this DJ situation because it's fresh in my mind. We had a wedding at a venue that we're on the preferred list for. So we work there several times per year. This DJ company had worked there before and they were familiar with the space, but the ceremony for this wedding was actually off property. And it is the day of the wedding, Carrie. I am setting up at the reception and I said, hey, you may we were getting a little close on time and the DJ was setting up at the reception. I'm like, hey, you may want to like head out soon and go set up your ceremony equipment. He's like, oh yeah, where is it? I Is it not here like in the courtyard? I'm like, no, it's not. It's 10 minutes away off property. He's like, oh, well, I've never done that. We've always just done it here. I'm like, right. But did you read the timeline? Because I actually have all of the instructions in the timeline. He's like, oh no, I didn't because everything's always here. I'm like, well, not today. And I would just like wanted to strangle him because this is the problem. Like, I send this out ahead of time for this exact reason. I don't think it was my job to be like, ding, 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 everyone, please note the ceremony is off site. Like, I actually do think I said in the details, like ceremony at this whatever location, the
Right,
reception at this. I'm
right.
like, why are we talking about this on the day?
That's crazy. So did he get set up at the
He
ceremony
did.
site?
He did. He did not bring a power cord. for his laptop. So we were running on battery and fingers crossed that we were going to make it all of his
That
battery.
makes
It
me
did.
so stressed
I
out right
know.
now.
I know. And
Yeah.
at that point I was kind of like, you know what? This is not my problem. If the music dies halfway through, I this they can get a refund. But no, it actually ended up being it worked great. The party was amazing. Like he was wonderful at his craft, but the lead up to it, how much of
Yeah.
it is our planner job to babysit them and make sure like do we need verbal confirmation from everybody that the
Mhm.
timeline was read? I still struggle with that.
Yeah. I think my best piece of advice is just be over communicative
Yeah.
with your vendors. And even if you feel like it's too much, do it anyway. Because I think for them, even if it's like on their end, if they're like annoyed with how much information, I would rather have that than them show up and be like, wait a minute, I didn't know this was happening. But as a vendor, just please read your timeline or ask questions
Yeah.
more than 48 hours prior to the wedding day.
Yeah, we'll gladly
Yeah.
answer. And part of being a good like in a vendor team is the collaboration. So on our end as planners, we should not be trying to be the sole leader of this whole thing and it's our way or the highway. Absolutely not. We are part of a team. It's very important that we ask these other professionals to pitch in their thoughts and ways that this could be
Mhm.
the best wedding ever. And so when we're crafting the timeline, I think it's really important to reach out to the photo video team first and say, hey, here's the rough timeline right now. And this could be months in advance.
Mhm.
And say, what are your thoughts? Where do you want them to go for the best light? We know that photos are super important to them. So we want to prioritize that in our timeline. Like
Yep.
we can work with that. We want everyone to showcase their best work. So we're not trying to say you only get 5 minutes for portraits, but we need to talk about it more than the day before, like you're saying.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point of like, we want your feedback and we want like what is important to you. Like you said with the photographer, it's like, do you need more time? And like, their shot list of how many photos they want. Maybe you need more time. There's other locations they've suggested that we're not aware of. And I think that's a great example of working together as a team. I think one of the other things with working together as a team on the day of is like, yes, as the planner, we're sort of the lead person. We have all of the answers, most likely. Um, but I think for me, it's like I'm really trusting my other vendors to step up and do their job and go above that, right? Like for the photography team, you have the timeline. If you guys are off site at the hotel getting ready, I'm not going to be there to tell you when you need to leave so that you're at the venue on time for the next set of photos or the next thing happening. And so I think that's a great way to work together, right? Where the photographer
Mhm.
is sort of taking the lead and being like, okay, everyone needs to get on the shuttle. Like, we're done with photos. We'll meet you at the venue. Like, that is a way to step in and help sort of guide that timeline along because at the end of the day, the photographer is going to be just as affected
Yeah.
if they're not helping to manage that. Because I've had that happen before where a photographer was just sort of like hands off, like, okay, we're done with that. Now what? And like look to me. And I was just like, what do you mean now what? Like you need to be getting the next thing done. And that was a little baffling for me. Like, why aren't you
Yeah.
just taking the lead? Because you know what the timeline is, you know what's coming next. Like, you can read a clock.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's a good point in how, like, choosing your vendor team, right? Like, you want to make sure that before you even hire them, you're talking to these vendors and figuring out what their experience level is. Have they just done styled shoots? Have they done real weddings? Have they been in that environment, outdoor weddings, indoor? Like, it's very important to understand that because, like you said, they do have to be the lead in their craft. And there are times where, I mean, it's not our job to be lead in the photography timeline. Like they have to go and manage their time. I also really appreciate when they are texting me on the day of saying, "Hey, just finished family photos.
Oh, I love
We're in
that.
the shuttle." I love that. And I try to do the same for our catering team because we have to, I feel like planner and caterer have to work closely together. So,
Yep.
this wedding, for example, that I was just saying, the ceremony was off site. They, because it's a 10-minute delay to get from ceremony back to reception, I text the catering manager when we are done at the ceremony and I'm like, okay, ceremony's done. Guests are heading out. Expect them to get there in 10, 15 minutes by the time they park. So that tells her crew, all right, let's get apps ready. Let's pre batch the cocktails. Like, let's be ready to receive. And I just think you cannot over communicate in those
Mhm.
situations.
Yeah, it's so much smoother because yeah, there's so many times where I'm telling the banquet captain like, "Hey, they like just kissed," and she's like, "Okay, everyone take their places. Like, let's be ready for like guests are entering the space in like 5 minutes." And so it also just feels great to like be on the same page with
Yes.
everyone, have that communication. Like, I think working together, getting along, it's like we all want this day to go smoothly. And we want the best for the couple. We don't want there to be any mishaps, like things getting behind. And so that is just like keeping that communication going
Hmm.
nonstop and not just being like, well, I did my part and
Yeah.
like, just kind of standing around being like, well, what's next? It's like have that communication, like text. If you need to start a text chain as the planner, like do that so it's easier for everyone to communicate.
Have you done that? Do you do group texts on the wedding day?
I've done it before with like the photo video team when they were like off site and then coming to the venue and there was just like a lot of moving pieces. And then typically the banquet captain and I will exchange phone numbers. Um, because sometimes I'm like, where is the banquet captain? Like we're just in different
Yeah.
places, or they're back in the kitchen, or they're like on the floor, and it's easier for me to text them and be like, hey, can we dim the lights? Or this client or this guest at table 6 needs, a specialty plate that you guys missed or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, so there's a few, not like everybody, but I feel like sometimes it is helpful. And usually those are people that I have great relationships with,
Yeah.
and it's just easier to text. But yeah, it's just
Yeah.
as simple for me.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I think, yeah, it's all part of that vetting process at the beginning. And we, like as planners, our job is to also recommend the vendor team in situations like this. So if you are hired for full service planning, or even if you are just offering wedding management, having a preferred vendor list or a list of recommended vendors is a great place to start because you do not want them to find a caterer on Craigslist to find out that, not that this has actually happened, but I feel like for somebody it had to have happened.
I
Um,
honestly forget Craigslist even exists,
I
so
know.
that's a
I don't know
blast from
why
the
that came to mind. I could have been like
past.
Facebook Marketplace. But yeah, just having a list of places of people and vendors to suggest to your clients because you vetted them. And if there was a vendor who underperformed or wasn't a team player or was very negative, it's important to also let them know. And that's something that actually on my inquiry call, I asked them before I even agree to have them as a client. I say, what vendors do you have booked already? And if there's somebody on that list that is just a big red flag for me, especially when it comes to catering, I'm going
Mhm.
to be like, I just know that that is going to make my job harder because they leave right after they drop entrees or whatever the case
Oh
may
my
be.
gosh. Yeah.
Imagine.
Yeah.
Then,
Like, peace out.
yeah, yeah, it's going to be a hard pass. How do you keep the energy high on the wedding day? Because I think again, planners, we almost have there's a bit of an expectation perhaps from vendors that we are like the project manager, which absolutely, but are you providing like a snack station for them? Is anybody doing anything for us? Is what I
Yeah.
want to know. Like, are we like the mom of the group?
I think for me, I just try to check in with the vendors. Like oftentimes if the time allows, or like someone from my team will be like, hey, how are you guys doing? Do you need anything? Like, even if they're like, hey, yeah, like we're really thirsty, where can we get water? Like, kind of making sure they it's not our job to take care of the vendor team, but like in a sense, I want them to be like, oh
Mhm.
wow, she like really cared and like letting them know when vendor meals are going to be dropped, where they're going to be at. Um, because sometimes even for the DJ, I'm like, hey, do you want me to go grab your food and bring it over? 'Cause
Yes.
they're like, oh, I can't really leave the station. Or sometimes they've been like, hey, will you grab me a cup of coffee? Like, I don't want to leave my DJ booth. And I'm
Yeah.
like, sure. So I feel like doing little things like that to kind of help them or making sure, like I said, like they are taken care of throughout the day is going to help kind of build that team camaraderie.
Yeah. Yeah. And another thing I think it's important to note, and perhaps this, oops, did you hear that
No?
ring? Oh, okay. Darn. Okay, good. I could have kept going. It just, there was an
It's
alert
okay.
on my. Um, Another thing that I think is important to set ahead of time is certain expectations on vocabulary. So for example, I it really bothers me when and I have to confess that I have been guilty of doing this. And I'm trying to be very careful. But it bothers me when vendors throughout the evening are like only 3 hours to go, or here we are again. And I've done that. I've fully confessed that I have
Mhm.
done that. And I am like, you know what? I'm choosing to do this job. I love it for the most part. And I have to give them my same energy than it at the last wedding of the year than if it was the first wedding of the year.
Yep.
And so I think being careful not to be negative with vendors or vendors being negative around anybody. You never know who's listening.
100%.
It just sets the tone for the rest of the evening. And it's just like it's your peers. Like you don't want a negative Nancy as a
Yep.
coworker all day.
Yep. No, I'm definitely guilty of that in the past too. And I would say it's maybe only been warranted a couple times where you're like, this was a day from, and you're just like, I am like, you're exhausted. Like, there's been some days where it was just like 100 degrees, and you're like, oh my gosh, like, this has been a long day. And we all know how those are. But yeah, I agree. I think being excited to be there until the end and like making sure your couple feels that excitement from their vendors because people can read into that when their photographer, their planner, the DJ is just like not into the
Yeah.
wedding. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And also just I when I send my final details email to all the vendors, I usually have a little note at the bottom that says, we're so excited for Joe and Jane's wedding. Let's make this a super fun collaborative event. If any of you need our help on something, please let us know, and vice versa. If anyone's available to give us extra hands in an emergency, like please be open to it or something along those lines. And I just want to set the expectation that it's not every man on their island and you just do your job, clock in, clock out. This is a collaborative experience. It's the nature of our work. We are one team together for this day and we should just help each other out. And
Yeah.
one good example is I sent a final email out to vendors, and the dessert person said, okay, so I actually broke my leg. I will be there, but do you have anybody that could just help me bring the desserts? I'm like, of course. Like, we're not just going to let you
Yeah.
roll around with your broken leg and crutches and just watch you. So, yeah,
That's a great example.
setting those, being able to jump in and help
Mhm.
whenever time allows. Cause I also understand that I can't just pull the photographer during the ceremony and be
Sure.
like, can you come help set up these chairs?
Right. I think one other thing too is like for all other vendors, like find your planner as soon as you get there on the day of and introduce yourself if you haven't met. And because sometimes like we don't know when someone's arrived or is on
True.
site, but like come find us and like let's get to know each other and so that we're like, great, okay, like let me know if you need anything, vice versa. I think it really helps because sometimes not to call out a specific vendor team again, but I feel like videographers are notorious for like showing up, doing their thing, and leaving. And I'm like, I don't even know the videographer's name for the day because they're just like very on their own. But I think, and that doesn't happen all the time, but like that's a vendor that's happened most often with. But I think like all of us getting to know each other and like it is helpful too, because like a lot of times at dinner, like we're sitting down and chatting and getting to know each other. Um, but I think that's a great way just to help set the vibe for the day.
Agreed. And with that too, what are some of your favorite ways to maybe show appreciation for these vendors? Whether it's before an event, during an event, after an event, what have you done?
Yeah. I mean, I think, like I said, day of for me is very much like checking in on them, seeing if they need anything. I think that always goes a long way. Or sometimes I'm like, hey guys, I got appetizers from the banquet
Yeah,
captain for us. Like, we got extra food. And they're like, oh my God, that's amazing.
that's always a win.
And then I think post, I don't do this as often and I should. And this goes back to what Sarah from Sarah Does SEO says is like leave reviews for your vendors. You don't have to be a paying client to leave someone a review. So I think that goes a long way. If you had a great experience working with them and you want them to get more clients as well, like leave
Yeah.
them a review, rave about them online. I think that goes a long way to say, thank you for being a great team member on the day of the wedding.
I agree. Yeah. And actually, I just did that yesterday. That's perfect because I remembered Sarah's comment about the fact that you can leave reviews as long as you've experienced their
Hmm.
work. It doesn't have to be from a paying client. As long as you were there, you experienced it. And so, yeah, I did that. And then, so what I did was in my email, my final details email where I shared the timeline, everything, about a week after the wedding. I will reply all to that same email and I'll thank everybody for a
Hmm.
great wedding weekend. The clients were super happy. I re add all of the vendor tags on for Instagram
Hmm.
so that it's really easy for them to just copy and paste that if they're posting any
Yep.
photos. And then I always say, I would love to leave you guys a review. If you can please share a link. And I said, also, if you're inclined to leave us a review, here's my Google link. And two people did it from the last weekend. And that's two extra reviews that I didn't
Yeah.
have before. So that was really a win win.
That's a great post follow up. I don't do that as often and I should. Um, but it's a great like system to have in place. Even if you get like an automated system set up and like you're just editing the vendor
Yeah.
handles from that, like that's a great way to do that. Perfect. Well, okay, Gabby, hold on. I gotta
I
take a, I
know there's
feel
a
like
bit of
that
a
was an
pause. I guess it'll
awkward.
be the wrap up.
Okay, yeah, wrap up. So all that to say, I mean, I think for us, we want to go into these wedding days having a great day, making sure things run smoothly. Like we don't want anyone fighting or not getting along or communication falling apart. And so I think at the end of the day, communicate with your vendor team, whether you are the planner or you're not. I think that goes a long way in just avoiding mishaps throughout the
Mhm.
day. Um, and it makes the day more fun. Like you get to
Yeah.
enjoy it and like maybe you meet a new friend through another vendor and like get to build a relationship with them and work more weddings with those people. I think sometimes when you're a little more standoffish, you might miss out on like someone who's really good at their craft and then working with them
Mhm.
on future weddings too.
Yeah, and even if you are a vendor that got hired first, before many other vendors, let's say you're a baker that the client has been obsessed with for years, and they hired you before the planner and photographer, you still have the opportunity to help create your dream vendor team. You could be the one to say, "Oh my gosh." If you haven't hired a planner yet, I would recommend so and so. We had a great experience together. I broke my leg and they helped me unload the car. Because you don't
Yeah.
know, we all have the power to influence who we get to work with on the day for a lot of these clients. And they're always looking for recommendations. I heard that the Gen Z couples are actually trying to get more personalized recommendations as opposed to just finding someone online. So don't be afraid to recommend vendors and help you build a dream team for the day.
Yeah, because I mean, I can think of so many instances where vendors have been like, "Wow, you're like so calm and like helpful throughout the day." Because not everyone's experience is always the same, and sometimes vendors don't get treated well by like other planners or other vendor teams. And when they do feel taken care of and like they're on a team, they're like so much more grateful for how that day is being ran. So,
Yeah.
well, Jabbers, thank you for listening to yet another mini-sode where Gabby and I just get to gab about things that we are passionate about within the wedding industry, and hopefully sharing our experiences and just tips with you guys on how to go about certain situations. But we'd love to hear from you guys. Feel free to DM us on Instagram if you have something you want to say. You can also join us over on Substack. We have a community that we're growing over there. You can be a free subscriber, but we also have paid subscribers. We have a couple people already, and with that, you're going to get a bonus episode a month, and another additional bonus post. So feel free to join us over there and kind of join the community, and you can share thoughts over there with us as well, or any stories, or if you want us to talk about another topic, feel free to leave a comment there, and we can put it on our docket. But again, thank you, Jabbers, for listening and supporting our podcast, and we will see you guys in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye.